Welcome into the show today. I've got a fun show planned. Got some loaded takes ready to be unleashed on this episode. And hey, if you're listening and or watching this episode and you are not one that has shared despicable comments towards me following my episode on the Minnesota Vikings locker room celebration after their victory against the Green Bay Packers, well, one, God bless you. And if you are one that does that and participated in the complete butchering of Minnesota Tim online, we'll keep it going. It's entertaining. I kind of enjoy it. Doesn't bother me one bit. But if you are one of them, Romans 3:23, go check that out. Please do. All right. Minnesota Tim, the Minnesota Vikings podcast. It was a very special day for lots of players because today was Pro Bowl announcement day. So Kevin O'Connell took to the practice field, probably did this yesterday and it got posted today, but it was revealed to the public today who would be in the Pro Bowl. And there are several Minnesota Vikings players that got voted in because their record is 14-2. And anytime you're going to have a record that good, well, you're going to have a lot of players that get named to the Pro Bowl. So enjoy this video of Kevin O'Connell naming the Pro Bowl players on the Minnesota Vikings roster.
One of the things that happens, all right, when you guys go on a journey like we have this year, all right, is eventually there's recognition for that. All right, and I want to let you guys know about some Pro Bowl selections for this year. Come on. Right. First and foremost, it's been since 2009 that the Vikings have had this many Pro Bowlers. We have 6 this year, right? Including 5 starters, including 4 guys for the first time in their careers, okay? So first and foremost, this is not one of those players. This happens to be a guy that has been voted to the Pro Bowl for the 3rd consecutive year. First time ever for a long snapper, Andrew DePaula. 3 first-timers on defense. All starters, by the way. All right? First and foremost, at 1 outside linebacker position, Jonathan Grenard. Secondly, at the other starting outside linebacker position, Andrew Van Ginkel. And I know this one means a lot. Guys put in a lot of hard work. Starting at the cornerback position, Mr. Byron Murphy. All right, back on the offensive side of the ball, his 4th Pro Bowl really should be number 5, even though he only played nine games or so last year. 4th time starter, Mr. Justin Jefferson. All right, and then we got one more first-timer, okay? One more first-timer on the offensive side of the ball. As you guys welcomed him back to the locker room the other day. Not expecting that kind of response right now, but please give it up for Mr. Sanders.
All the accolades, all the awards, man. That's everyone in this huddle. Every single one of y'all. Here we go. Hey, Vikes on 3. 1, 2, 3.
So it's fun to see Kevin O'Connell give out awards to the players that made it. And a few things come to mind when reacting to this video. One, how does a long snapper get voted on ahead of other long snappers? I get that there's different quality of long snapper out there, but when Andrew DiPiola went down earlier in this season and got placed on IR alongside Will Reichard, they brought in a long snapper off the street and they brought in the kicker off the street and things went on seamlessly. So I don't know what it is that Andrew DiPiola does that makes him a great long snapper, but it looks like he's been there before and he's going there once again. A few more notes. The players that got announced that stood out to me: Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Sam Darnold. As critical as we've been about Kwesi Adolfo Mensah's drafts, and rightfully so, We need to have the exact opposite approach towards his ability to sign quality free agents, because that's a really difficult task. So many times you see a franchise or an organization bring in free agency players, and they're superstars on one team. You bring them into your organization, and I don't know what happens, if it's the money or if they just had a good year, but you bring them into your organization, and they're nowhere near as good. And you think about those players that got named, and all of those guys have been standout players on the Minnesota Vikings defense and the Minnesota Vikings offense. So a lot of credit to the Vikings general manager and bringing in the right guys for the right organization, for the right defensive scheme and offensive scheme. So that's pretty cool. All right, another story that I wanted to get to, and this is before the Vikings-Lions preview, which will come out on my feed tomorrow. But there was a Detroit Lions defender that has made some public comments to the Detroit Free Press, and he was talking about the Vikings offense and the Detroit Lions defense. So if you don't know this already, the Detroit Lions defense has been struggling recently. And not all of it is by their own doing. A lot of it is unfortunate luck, because they've had at least a dozen players on the injured reserve list that are completely gone for the season. But their recent ball games, they've given up 34 to San Fran, 17 to Chicago, 48 to Buffalo, 31 to Green Bay, and 20 again to Chicago. Before those two games, they gave up 6 points to Jacksonville and Indianapolis. So these last 5 or 6 games or so, the Detroit Lions defense has not been very stout. Against a 49ers team that's playing for nothing, they stink. Against the Buffalo Bills offense that's great, they stink. Against the Green Bay offense that has been up and down this season, they stink. And Detroit Lions defender, what was his name again? I can't think of it right now. It'll come to me in a second. Detroit Lions defender made some public comments. His last name is Arnold, and his first name is Darian or something like that. Darian Arnold says this: "We are a bad matchup for Minnesota. They got receivers, but we got cover guys." What does that even mean? What does cover guys even mean? You could argue that every single NFL defensive team in the league has cover guys. Terrian Arnold put the Minnesota Vikings wide receiver corps on notice with his blunt comments. And he's trash talking the Minnesota Vikings wide receiver corps by saying they've got good guys. We're a bad matchup for Minnesota, but we've got cover guys. Well, one, the Minnesota Vikings have the best wide receiver in football. They've got the best, or arguably the best, wide receiver 2 in football, Jordan Addison, who would be wide receiver 1 on a lot of NFL football teams. And they have a wide receiver 3 in Jalen Naylor that Kevin O'Connell purposely schemed to get open against the Green Bay Packers. And the reason that he schemed Jalen Naylor to receive a touchdown and to be an important part of the Vikings offense versus Green Bay is because Jalen Naylor has the talent to do so. It's not like O'Connell took this fifth tier scrub on the Minnesota Vikings offense and made him into a focal point against the Packers. He took a very talented wide receiver 3, knowing the Packers are going to try to take away Addison and Jefferson, and made him a focal point of the offense. And that's why we saw Naylor go off against the Green Bay Packers. So it's not like Lions defender Terrian Arnold is making these claims against a Chicago Bears passing attack that stink for most of the season, a team that's lost like 11 straight games. He's making this claim against a 14-2 football team, a Sam Darnold that's playing his best football of his career, a team that has Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, and Naylor, not to mention Aaron Jones, and their defense stinks. So I'm sure the Minnesota Vikings organization is going to use these comments to ignite something in the Minnesota Vikings wide receivers, just because. I mean, why wouldn't you? These are blasphemous comments, and you use anything as motivation in this league, even though the number one seed should be motivation enough. This just gives you an extra little something to use against the Detroit Lions defense. So a Lions defender trash talks the Minnesota Vikings offense, trash talks the best wide receiver core or trio in this league, not to even mention TJ Hawkinson. And the Minnesota Vikings offense has been on a heater practically all season, but particularly recently. 27 against Green Bay, 27 against Seattle, 30 against Chicago, 42 against Atlanta. The Vikings offense is rolling right now, and a Detroit Lions defender decides to talk out his butt and make blasphemous comments. I mean, you've got to be careful to not react too harshly, because what else is he supposed to say? Okay, I always ask myself that question, and you should ask yourself that question. What else is the Lions defender supposed to say? And in this moment, he's not going to say, yeah, we're going to get schooled by the best wide receiver in the league. He's not going to come out and make those comments. He's not going to say, yeah, we got no chance. But he doesn't have to say that we're a bad matchup for Minnesota. He doesn't have to say that they got receivers, but we got cover guys. He didn't have to say that. He could have said, yeah, you know, and there's nobody better than this than the Minnesota Vikings organization. He could have said, you know what? Yeah, they got Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Naylor. They've got guys, but we're going to take a look at the game tape. We're going to have a plan, and we're going to do our best possible job to try to slow them down the best we can. That's all he had to say. That's all he had to say. Something simple, something that's really nothing. Make a comment that doesn't make news. That's the best. The people that do that are the best in the business at making comments. If you can go to a podium and there are no stories following your comments, then you did your job. You're boring as hell. You're boring. It's yawn fest, and it just gives you nothing as a listener, as a fan, as a blogger, as a reporter. But nobody is better than Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings organization, Vikings players. They go to the podium, and these guys are trained assassins at saying nothing. This Detroit Lions defender, he's got to take a class, because this is the wrong thing to say at this point in time ahead of a crucial Week 18 matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. So here we go. Huge game, big matchup. Vikings, Lions for the number one seed. My full preview will come out tomorrow. Make sure you hit subscribe here or there, wherever that button is. And thank you for making this podcast a part of your day and for going on this journey with me.